You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage-inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com for all your racing merchandise needs. I'm your co-host, Aaron McAtee, other co-host. You may have seen walking out of Barber Lounge 459 with big old smile on his face. You may have seen him at a dirt track. He is Scott Bally.
Hey, Aaron, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, and I know you're doing great too because you are nice and warm, thanks to the good guys at Good
The
Guys.
good folks at Good Guys. Yeah, I am nice and warm. Everything's working good. Everybody at my parents' house, everybody's warm there because the good folks are good guys. So yeah, they definitely take care of me, and they'll take care of anyone else out there in the Indianapolis area. If you just look them up.
Absolutely. Thanks to everyone who listens. If you haven't, please hit like and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. We are over 300 subscribers now, so thank you to everyone. So let's keep getting the number up. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We don't only do the podcast. We've done a lot of different video projects as well. And we're still working on some. Obviously, we have our partnership now with Fast Times Indoor Karting, where we're doing our Pro vs. Joe's video series. We just recorded one last week that was really good. You weren't at that one, but I was there. Jacob was there. And it was a good one. It was with 3 former pro drivers. So I think everyone will really, really enjoy that one. We'll get that released in a few weeks, hopefully. And then there's another one that we haven't even released yet that will be coming out hopefully this week. And then, yeah, it's a lot of fun. So if you're in the Indy area, please go check out Fast Times Indoor Karting. I think it's definitely the best indoor go-kart place in Indianapolis. It's definitely the most intense, and I think the most realistic as far as if you really want to get a feel for what it's like to really be a racing driver. It's definitely the place to go. It's a lot of fun. It's a good workout, and it gives you good perspective, kind of what it's like to be a race car driver.
Yeah, it's like I said before. You gotta get your elbows up there and you gotta drive. I mean, it's a tight course. It's fast. Got a lot of grip. So everything's coming at you pretty quick. So yeah, I'd say that's a very accurate assessment, though. I mean, it's pretty close to the real thing.
And if you watch our videos, you can see with some of these pros what their fast times are, and you can see how close you can get to their times. Maybe you can even beat them. We have a board actually up at the front counter, so if you do go there, you'll see Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92 Pro vs. Joe's, and then I'm even on the board. I'm a couple more times. I'm going to be off that board because we're going to run out of room, but that's fine. I improved my time the last time, so I'm happy about that. Jacob actually was a little slower than his previous time, but I'm getting faster, so that's a good thing. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So please check out Fast Times. Special thanks to them. And then hopefully we get some other stuff worked out with them as well, and maybe get some people involved where they can actually come and maybe participate in some of the stuff with us.
Yeah, I think that if we can get something like that worked out, people have a lot of fun. So I know it's definitely something Aaron's been working on. So we'll see where that goes.
Absolutely. Let's see what else we got. So we are planning on having a live show in McGilvery's in January. We'll get back on the exact date on that. And so thanks to Top Gun Racing, Grand King Race Shops for sponsoring those events at McGilvery's. I know the one in December 6th was obviously a really good one. Something we're probably not going to be able to really match up to, and I think we're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, just the quality of guests was so amazing. It was kind of a lightning in the bottle evening for everybody involved. So why I believe we'll have a lot of events that are just as fun. It's going to be a little hard to match that, but no, I'm looking forward to the next show, and I'm looking forward to doing more of those.
Absolutely. Only other sponsor I got, unless I missed anything else, Racer Collect. Thanks to Patrick Patton. Please check out racercollect.com for any of your racing memorabilia needs. Definitely has some great stuff on his website. As far as racing news, I know Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona will be here very, very soon. The roar before the Rolex is coming up here in a couple weeks, so it's really the first big racing event of the year. So a lot of people I know really look forward to watching it, including myself. And it'll be this year I know they're full capacity, so a lot of new manufacturers, cars, so it's gonna be a pretty good year there, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, beginning of the year brings the Chili Bowl, it brings the Rolex, it brings Daytona. So, and then IndyCar isn't too far behind it when it kicks off in March in St. Pete. So it's getting here. Speaking of racing, my nephew raced over the weekend. He had another new car. He ran really well. Unfortunately, got run over in the semi and got a throttle cable broken. It's indoor racing. That's what happens. But he looked really good. He was in a transfer spot in the B main behind some really great drivers. And so he's made a lot of progress. And other than that, Daniel Robinson ended up winning the race. It was the Knipper 55, which is after the junior Knipper and the Knipper family, like Steve Knipper and that. Always a great race to attend. There's another race in March at DuQuoin. So if anybody's looking for some open wheel racing in March, look that up. It's at the Southern Illinois Center at the fairgrounds in DuQuoin. So it's good racing, good time. Other than that, some sad news. Friend of the show, good friend of mine, very good friend of mine, Kent Schmidt, lost his father. So, man, all the best wishes go out to Kent. Kent's one of my all-time buddies. And then Racing World lost another pioneer of the sport in a lot of ways, Daryl Saucer, who really known in the sprint car midget world. Daryl's team actually won Chili Bowl with Damian Gardner, probably about 10 years ago now. Daryl, just a long time competitor in the world of outlaws, was one of the first people. So fuel pumps used to always be made out of magnesium, and they were cast. He was one of the first people to make aluminum fuel pumps. So he was really a pioneer in the sport of all motorsports. So it's sad to lose Daryl. I've spent a lot of days talking to Daryl and his wife Cindy, and it's a big loss for someone like myself. And my heart goes out to her. So
Absolutely.
that very sad, but he brought a lot of joy to a lot of people's lives while he was here, and he was always such a great source of knowledge and always had the best stories. I'm really sad that we never had him on the show. But like you and I've talked about before, that's why we do this show, so we can get those stories. Unfortunately, it was an unexpected passing, and we just never had a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, so the guest is, first off, do we have any other racing news?
I can't think of anything. I've been kind of glancing around here and there, and I just haven't really. It's just that dead part of the season. I see even David Land's doing things like, what if F1
Yeah,
like ran the oval or something? He's just trying to fill time, right?
Well, so I know we have a Chili Bowl coming up, so we'll definitely plan on doing our annual. Would be the second year, right? Second year or third year? My bad, third year. Third year.
It'll be the second as racer to racer, but it'll be our third year
of the Chili Bowl live event. So we'll we'll start working on that. We'll get some new people maybe, and I think we're gonna have to try to get this guy on it. Right there.
Who you point at? I can't see you pointing.
Mr. Jagger Jones.
We'll try to get Jagger on. Jagger will be back here maybe that week doing media stuff with Indy Next. I believe that's when they do all their media, like they do their filmings and their headshots and all the type of things for the races, that you see, the stand-ups and all that. So I think it's that week. It all kind of blends together. So I may be
Right.
wrong. So I don't know if he'll be in town necessarily Saturday night, but I think he's going to be in town here during that week. Um, yeah, there's just yeah, we definitely got to start looking for some people and see if we can get one of our guests from last year, Tanner Holmes, actually competing in this year's Chili Bowl. He's driving for Chad Boat Motorsports. So I'll be anxious to see how he does. Great racer. He had a breakout season this year in the sprint cars. So I'm excited to see how he does.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we are releasing this week Alessandro Zampedri. Alessandro, I mean, really one of the nicest guys in racing, right? Drove in 3 Indianapolis 500s. He's Porsche SuperCup champion. Just a great guy, very talented guy. And now he's in real estate. But I really enjoyed speaking with him. He was somebody that I met when it was during US Grand Prix. He was racing Porsche Super Cup, and I remember meeting him out there. And I'll always remember because I remember how nice he was, and just very, very kind individual. And I mean, I can't say enough nice things about him. Just great guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's the first time I talked to him. It was a great interview. Very refreshing how honest he is.
Yes.
Not that our other guests haven't been. It's just he has a certain pointedness to his
Hmm.
conversation that I really respect. Um, and there's a guy there at Indianapolis Motor Speedway didn't treat him very kind, unfortunately, but he ran very well there. Just victim of circumstances, but great talk. It was a good time talking to him. So
Absolutely. And we will be getting to 2023 before we know it. And like we have said past couple times, we're sticking with our theme from last year, which was jumping into the new year.
yep, and that's gonna be a good one. That's gonna be a really good one. So
Yes,
I can't wait till we
we've
can.
already recorded it and we had a really great time. Me personally, I know I definitely had a great time because it was someone that I really kind of grew up. My childhood was, watching stuff with him involved. So it's really great to really sit down with them and get to really pick his brain about a couple things. And I got to answer some of the questions I've wondered for most of my childhood. So it was good. I think a lot of people will enjoy it, and it's crazy that we're already getting in 2023, and definitely looking forward to what 2023 will bring.
Yeah, it's definitely looking forward to it.
So I hope everyone enjoys our interview with Alessandro Zampedri, and I hope everyone has a great week.
Yeah, the absolute best holiday wishes to everyone out there. Thank you for listening. And, I know some of you listen every week. Thank you so much. It means a lot. And everyone, take care.
Yep, happy holidays. Our guest today is a former Porsche Super Cup champion and drove in 3 Indianapolis 500s. We're joined by Alessandro Zampedri. Alessandro, thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor to have you on the show. And I actually remember I met you, it would have been Formula One, the USGP, when you were doing the Porsche Super Cup. I've always remembered meeting you. So it's really cool to have you on the show.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I don't get to talk about my racing career very much or lately, with my new life. So it's cool to go back and talk to some indie folks.
Absolutely. No, we hear that a lot actually. A lot of people like yourself get, normal jobs outside of racing, and it's kind of like they're almost like their secret double life, right? That a lot of people don't even know about.
Yeah, indeed.
But so talk a little bit about how did you get interested in racing to begin with?
Oh man, I was like a bit of a motorhead since I was a little kid. So my dad bought me and my brother the first motorcycle when we were like 5 years old. So that was like where kind of like everything started with engines. And then when I was 9 years old, he brought me to a little go-kart track near where we lived, and he knew some people there, typical, Patterson thing, and I fall in love with this like little 4-wheel things going so fast around corners, and so like 6 months later, I bagged him so much that he bought me a little one, and that's how everything started.
So how old were you when you were in your first like actual like go-kart race?
So I was 12 years old because back in those days, you could only start racing when you were 12 years old. So from like when I was 9 until I was 12, I just trained. So my mom was taking me to the racetrack, and I would just like spend, the whole afternoon after school. It's just like pick me up in school, take me to the racetrack, and I would spend like the whole afternoon there, just, driving around, going through tank of fuels and learn. So that's how it happened. And then when I was 12, I could finally start racing.
How long was it before you had your first success?
It came pretty fast. I mean, that seasons, they were all like, I raced for like a couple of years on like local race cycle around my regions and everything. And I think I won in my last, like in my third or fourth race, something like that. Wow. It's been a long time, but I mean, I got a head start because I basically, trained for 3 years, and so when I got into the races, I was already pretty fast. I just like needed to learn a little bit the racing and the side by side and the overtaking and those things, but it was pretty quick.
How long? So after the go-kart racing, obviously you got into Formula car racing, right? What was the first actual like race car that you drove after karting?
So back in the day, so it was like late 80s when I did. There wasn't like that many Formula. Now there's a lot of options. Like you have like
Right.
Formula 4 and like Formula 3 and Renault, and so like there's really tons of ways, to start racing cars. Back in those days, there was only one series, which was this like Formula Alfa Romeo, which was basically the first step into racing cars and the step before Formula 3. So I did that in 1988. That was my first season. And then I got some like good results, but I was, in a very new team, not super well funded, but I managed to get some like really good results. And the top team, basically asked me if I was available to go and race for them. Of course, back in those days, like probably today, you still had to bring some sponsorship. So but the team was already had some sponsors on their own, so I didn't need to bring the full budget. But I had some sponsorship, and so we did. The 1989 season was, an incredible season. I won, I think, 7 out of the 10 races we had. I did, I think, 9 pole position and did 8 fastest lap in the race. So I totally dominated the championship. Which then, after that, I became Alfa Romeo Works driver for Formula 3. So I got the engine supply for free. I got, a lot of other things. And, that got my real career started in Formula 3.
And I mean, at that point, would you say that your goal was to be in Formula One because you're kind of following the path to Formula One, right?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, when you were kids and you're racing go-karts back in those days in Italy, in Europe, the goal is to go to Formula One. I mean, that's the goal.
Sure.
That's what you're aiming for, 100%. And the path, I was following, all the right steps.
And
what would you, and how much time in that better term is program or in that ladder, trying to progress to Formula One? How long a time period you spend in that?
So yeah, that's a very good question because it's always been a goal of mine because like either you're good or you're not, right? I mean, it's like you can now race for 5 years in the same series and like spinning your wheels and trying to, finishing 9 and 10, otherwise it's not your job, right? It's like my dad was pretty clear to me, and I was always very strong with myself, I just wouldn't keep on racing, without. But then, as you go and you just go into the series, you have to deal with a lot of components, that is just not you, so it's always some luck, being at the right time in the right car, the right engines, so basically I've tried to not spend more than 2 seasons, so I did 88 my first year in Formula Alpha, and 89 was Formula Alfa Romeo, and I won everything, and then in Formula 3 I actually spent 2 seasons, 1990 and 1991. I would say very fast, but not as successful as I wanted to be. In 1990, I drove the Lara car, which it was not a very good car that year. Reynard actually won the championship. And so we struggled, although I got some good results. And then in 1991, I moved to the Reynard team. It was the Camel. It was me and Jacques Villeneuve. We were teammates.
Oh, wow.
With the Camel team, and we got the Reynard. And the Reynard was a disaster that year. Maybe if Rigor listened to my podcast, he's still upset with me because and that's probably why he never wanted me to race a Reynard car in IndyCar, or like didn't help me for sure, like he did help others. But I mean, it is what it is. I think I was the only driver going on the podium in Formula 3 in Europe with a Reynard car that year. But then we switched to Ralt, and I got podium finishes. I got second, third. I was basically in front of Jacques all the season in the championship, so I was always fairly quicker than him. But then I got some mechanical failures and other things, so we ended up having a very strong season, but not as meaningful as we wanted it to be, winning. And we had like Luca Badoer, those years in Formula 3 in Italy, there were like 45 cars fighting. So yeah. And there's actually, this is funny, but there were 2 racetracks in Italy, Varano and Magione, where only 16 cars will start in Magione and 18 cars in Varano. So out of 40. So that means everybody else, didn't race the final. So, and in that season, in 91, I got into both of those races and pretty decently. And I remember Jacques did not qualify for those 2. So, but, this is, the story eventually ended up different, for him than it did for me. And we're still good friends, but that's it. And then I moved to Formula 3000, which was, it is the actual Formula 2. And I did that for two seasons, 92 and 93. Again, there was tough competitions. I was racing against, Gilles de Ferran, Pedro Lamy, Olivier Panis. I mean, they were tough years, with Reynard and Cosworth and Mugen engines. It was fun. It was a lot. I did well, in 92, I had, I think, 5 top 7 finish, but I only finished in the point twice, only the first 6 got points. And, it was always the same, but I was racing, Rubens, also Barrichello was racing, it was really, really fun, and I was fast. And in 93, I basically formed Nordic Racing, which ended up being a very successful team in Formula 3000. They won the championship with Justin Wilson following years. But Derek Maurer was the owner. And Derek started the team. We did it together after Tom's Toyota, which I signed to race for. They decided not to race in Formula 3000. So I had to put a deal together the last time, and then they decided to come racing with a Japanese driver, Hideki Noda. So it was a bit of a crazy situation. Almost the same one I had in '97 with Andy Evans and Scandia, but that's maybe for another day.
Well, that'd be about the fourth or fifth Andy Evans story we've had on here.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm sure you heard a few. Even if I think I'm probably the one that's got the best ones, but so then we finished on a podium in '93 at the Nürburgring. I was on the front row in Spa, so really quick. But I was alone in the team, just one car, very little practice. So either we get it right or not. So it's this is where probably the most critical time in my career came, because like you're fast, you're up there, but you always have to. Always something, right? And but my team owner, Derek Maurer, said, "Alessandro, you're very fast. You got the speed. You're never gonna get into Formula One, basically, because I don't know if you guys remember, but back in those days, there were like I think 10 or 11 Italian drivers in Formula One out of the 22, and
Right.
the other ones were like Nelson Piquet, Ayrton Senna, Nigel Mansell, like." All the world champions that they weren't going anywhere, right? So it was basically impossible for a young driver. Even David Coulthard, which also raced with me in 3000, he got a test driver job at Williams because he just couldn't get it right. I mean, unless you showed up with 2-3 millions and you get to drive for Minardi, Simtech, Pacific, one of the teams that you're always on the last row. And you're never going to do much, right? So, and then he said, you should look at the IndyCar and, try to go there because I think you can be very good there. So I was, I don't know, probably maybe the first young, from Formula 3000 to come here and race Indy from Europe. I don't know if there was anybody else. Maybe you guys know better than I do, but, that was 1994. And other than, someone trying to do like one race or two, but like doing a full season, there weren't that many. You had Theo Fabi, you had others that came, but sort of like on the downside of their career, like Derek Daly came, but he was already being Formula One driver and so on. So
yeah.
So
Theo, he started off good. He had some bad breaks and just never got he never got I mean, he never got to show the real just the finishes weren't worthy of his driving on a lot of days, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, what I can say too is, he's been in Formula One. He was, one of the top drivers, and for sure, you always, like, many others, when they came over and raced, I just wish, that, some people maybe understand that, maybe when some of those drivers were coming over, they didn't have the same motivations or the same, willingness to do, they were here kind of like at the end of their career, and Theo, I think, was like that, he had his business, and I'm sure his story, right? When, him and his brother was as quick as him, or maybe even quicker, but then their dad died, so they had to, run the family business. They had a mine, so, but then when, the opportunity came, Theo had a ride and Corrado didn't. So Corrado ended up running the mine and Theo had kept racing. And it's a nice story. It's a beautiful family. It was very fast, but I guess, this is life in racing. You probably heard the trillion stories of,
Yeah. The auto racing is so, it's like threading the eye of a needle, right? It's just the
100%.
chance to do it. Yeah.
It's you get it right, and your career goes like amazing, or you just like, and then you have ups and downs, and so it is what it is. It's like occasions and opportunities, and then your life gets a turn in one way or gets a turn on another.
Now, was IndyCar racing or Indy 500? I mean, especially like the Indy 500, was that something you really paid attention to kind of before you decided you were going to go IndyCar racing, or was it kind of a new aspect for you since you were kind of focused on Formula One?
No. I mean, as a kid, I was always watching everything I could ever watch and passionate about it. We always, I mean, back in those days, the only way to know things about was buying Autosprint on Tuesday morning when it was coming out. There was no internet, there was no, IndyCar was not televised over there, and so it was like, you're talking about the 80s also here, right? But I was very, very passionate and interested. I mean, of course, we all follow Mario, and Mario, after his Formula One career, he came over, so he had a lot of followings over in Europe, and magazines and everything were writing about him. I remember, articles of him, in Autosprint, in his house in Nazareth, in his private lake, and, all these things, that he had. I mean, it's just like, it was a hero. So like you really, as a kid, that's, what I was looking at.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, before you came over to America, I'm going to guess you probably never did an oval. I mean, I don't know where you would have raced an oval. So, I mean, over here was the first time you did an oval. So what was the first oval? Was it Nazareth, or did you test somewhere first?
No, my first oval experience actually was in Michigan at the Michigan Super Speedway. Yeah. It was
might as well get out of the way right off the bat.
Exactly, right. And this happened because in 1994, I had in Portland, I think one of my best ever IndyCar race. I finished 7th with Dale Coyne with a 1-year-old car. Very limited engine program. I was running like 400 or 500 reps, less than anybody else, so the engine would last way longer. But I did an incredible race. I mean, I finished. I overtook Mario, Stefan Johansson, Bobby Rahal. I mean, I was like flying, right? So the team after that race, so top 10 back in those days, where you had like Penske, it was like, it wasn't like a 7th place of today, so it was sort of a miracle, and it was like well deserved. It was not like 20 cars retired in front of me. So the team, Dale Coyne and Mike Lanigan, decided that I should have given it a try to the ovals, and so they said, Michigan 500's next. We'll put you in the car. So, whoa, okay, great. So I went, and I was so in practice I was really quick. I mean, I was 14, 15, still with a 1-year-old car, limited engine, but it was taking me a while to get up to speed because I was just not used to it. And so we did the last quali simulations on the day, and so we put like 4 new tires, and I went out, 1 warm-up lap and 2 flying lap. And during the second flying lap, basically the front right tires exploded. I got a piece of debris and it blew up. I don't know if it was that, or then also the brake disc got like completely. Jacques was right behind me, and he saw this like black thing, coming, and then I just went straight into the wall, like at 230 something miles an hour to 228, whatever it was. And basically I hit so hard that the front suspension went into the side of the car and basically broke the top, but also broke my pelvis in 3 pieces. My liver was damaged, I was bleeding. It was a pretty nasty hit. So I spent like 2 nights in the hospital. Likely the liver healed himself, but that kind of like put a big dent in my season, because I was supposed to drive just the road courses for Dale Coyne, and then he was going to put like some other oval drivers in the ovals. And unfortunately that was a very, very, very important start, because I was good, and I was always good on ovals. I was fast, but that was rough, and it sort of killed my 94 season, because I went back in Nazareth, but I had to like don't put weight in my right leg for like 3 weeks, and I lost the sensitivity underneath my foot, so braking, accelerating wasn't the same thing. And I think we had Vancouver, Laguna, and another race. So I only missed Mid Ohio, but it was hard for me to drive after such a shunt, with being like, my strength in my legs. And the car back in those days are not like they are today, didn't have power steering, had, 750 kilos cars, with a manual shift, you didn't have the little thing in your steering wheel. So you really had to drive the car, and so it was hard. But so yeah, that was my first day on an oval.
The big thing that we hear about drivers that kind of came from the road course, European circuits like you, is when they come and do the ovals, just their neck, like just how much different it is on your neck and just the G forces on the oval. Was that something that I think it was Kristen Fittipaldi that told us a story where they asked him if he needed like the helmet, like an extra thing when the helmet, what was it? Yeah, helmet support.
Well,
He's like,
just
no, I have a
padding.
strong neck. And he was like, yep, he said that was definitely a mistake. I mean, was that something that you really noticed?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the G-force and the neck and the whole thing, it's in my body. I mean, what really struck me driving in ovals more than, of course, the neck, but then you have your headrest, and you just like learn to handle yourself, because it's almost impossible to have muscles that are gonna hold your head for that long. In an oval, so you have to rely a little bit on the headrest, that your head is not going anywhere because it's being held up pretty much. It's really like the vision, so where you actually don't look straight, you have to look like up, when you're in the banking, to look at your line. So that was something that took me a little bit to get used to it. But also the level of concentrations that you needed to have when you're driving, and also I think the other very critical thing was that, like, when you're driving on a road course, if your car is understeer, oversteer, like you have some issue with the handling, you sort of like really get it, because you go into a corner and then you see like the front is pushing when you go on the gas, the back is turning around, because we had no traction control back in those days, right? So in the ovals, you sort of have to feel the car, right, before it actually gets to that point, right? Because you cannot just like say, oh, the car is oversteering because you're in the wall. Right. You can just say, hey, the car is, I got like, yeah, maybe with the understeer is a little bit better because you feel a little push, but it's not like in a road course where you can really, miss a corner and you still like can get away with it. You really have to be super sensitive in feeling your car and knowing what the issue is with the car.
Yeah. Who was it? Who was it? Jimmy Kite told him that if you feel it, if it gives you a warning, listen to it, because
yeah,
next time I forget who told him that, but yeah, he was talking about that too. One of the best pieces of advice he ever got was, if it gives you a warning, listen to it, because you're not going to outdrive what it's telling.
Yeah. No, that's exactly.
So 95 is first year at Indy. I mean, what was kind of your initial impression of Indy? Like, the big thing people talk about is just how much different it is and how intimidating. People always say how intimidating it is to go into the first turn at full throttle. I mean, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, the ovals were never. I felt very comfortable with the speed. It was never something that and this is throughout my Indy career, I never really had that issue. My and Indy 95 for me was an incredible year, because I was on Firestone. It was the first year Firestone came back, and I still drove. Then at that point, Walter Payton kind of like had joined the team with Dale, and so we were like a little bit. But you knew Dale back in those days. He still had his 1-year-old cars, and very limited engine.
It's a lot different today. It's a
It's
lot
a lot
different today.
different today. I know. But I drove for him back in those days, and basically I was like every day I was going out. We were like either the top 10 or like 11th. I was super quick, and that was the year when like the whole team Penske didn't qualify. I don't know if you remember, right? The
Right.
Oh, yeah.
drama. Yeah. So and and so for me it was like unbelievable. I was like super fast, and then in qualifying I end up I think starting 16 or 17th. I don't know, you probably have the grid that year, and I think I qualified I think in front of Danny Sullivan and Paul Tracy, or they were just around me, pioneers. I mean, with a 1-year-old car, and not a good engine. I qualified the car first attempt, also because we really didn't have a good spare car, so there was a one shot I had, and I put the car there, and I had an incredible race. I finished 11, just out of the top 10, and I suffered a massive understeer the whole race because I got a piece of. You remember there was the year that Eddie Cheever had the accident with Stan Fox.
Mhm.
And I was just right around it, and I got a huge piece of metal, and I had a hole in my shock absorber's cover in the front, and so I had my aerodynamics in the front was not really at its best, but I did a fantastic race and finished 11th, which was for a rookie with a 1-year-old car. And doing Indy for the first time. I mean, it was I really enjoyed it. It was tough, but I was very happy. I finished my first Indy 500 ever, 11th in a 1-year-old car. Maybe someone else should have noticed it, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's just like you kind of alluded to a while ago. Is just, man, who knows why certain things go the way they do, right?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, you'll see somebody go out and not have what you think is a great race, but then or a great run of races, but you'll see somebody step up and take a chance on them. Whereas
Yeah,
you'll see somebody else who will perform over and over again. It's like they can't get that
yeah,
that
yeah.
that
I
break.
mean, I think honestly, my 2 years, with Dale, even on 95, we had like I think I finished ninth in Cleveland, and then I think in the top 10 in another race, still with basically no resources, and I wish someone maybe would have given me the better chance, but it didn't work that way, and and then at the end of the season, they'll basically sign a contract with me for 96, and then Roberto Moreno showed up with a few $1 million from data control, and he got my seat,
Right.
and that was basically I was with no ride for 96, and this is when I did the Indy 500, which that's another story, right? My 1996 Indy 500.
Right. And you still you finished fourth in 96
Yes,
still?
yes, I finished fourth. Yes, I didn't cross the start finish line, but I finished fourth because we lapped everybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's why. I
yeah,
didn't realize that was why. Because I wondered
yeah,
why, you still.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really odd turn of events, right? I mean, it's something that
yeah.
I mean, how again, that's such an oddity.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, if you think about it, I get the ride with Andy, with Scandia driving the Lola that Alboreto was driving in the previous events, and basically, last minute program, and I got the ride. I think I start 7th in the race, so I was on the inside of row 3, and with a car that Michele didn't want. Andy had bought the Rainer that Jacques won the year before with Barry Green. So, and he qualified, I think 17 or something like that. So it was a good start. I was quick, and I went into the lead on lap 170, and we had the fuel to go to the end. And I led the race for 20 laps until my rear right shock absorbers compression valves broke. Believe it or not, that was insane. But that race was, I think, well, I don't know if it still is, but it was one of the fastest Indy 500 ever, because they just repaved the whole speedway. Right. And I think, there was a lot of stress on the car and on the shock absorbers, and so it failed, and the car became undrivable. And so I started losing. I had the full straightaway advantage on Buddy Allure. So I was like way ahead. I was not like fighting with anybody. I was just flying with basically 10 laps to go. And then I started losing some speed heavy because of this, and I didn't understand what was going on, because how the hell in the world you think about your compression valve broke, right? That's insane, just thinking about it, right? And I thought I had a puncture, but I didn't, because then the car in the straightaway wasn't so bad, and then Linz and James and I don't know who else, they crashed. So I went full course yellow. And at that point, I think I dropped down to second or third. And during the yellow, I tried to understand what the hell was going on with the car. And I just didn't want to pit, because it was going to be the end of the race. And so it was like, I went from like winning the race to like living the worst nightmare in 2 minutes, and that is until, we the race started for the one last lap. And basically on the last corner of the last lap, Roberto Guerrero, which he should have known better, went way too low and went into the dip on inside turn 4, which everyone knew it was there except him probably. And lost the car and just like start spinning into the group that we were coming up. And he got me like right on, and I went airborne in the fence at 225 miles an hour, and basically had a huge shunt. I ended up almost in pit lane, but I was alive, and with a lot of feet injuries and surgeries ahead of me, but that was it. But I still finished fourth because we lapped everybody. So.
The foot injuries, did it come? Was it from the fence itself, or was it from the fence post, or do they know?
I mean, relook at the video, and then you just see. I mean, it was just like a wreck. I mean,
just pick something, right?
Yeah, I mean, from the knee forward, the car was not there anymore. I mean, the car got basically chopped in two.
Sure.
In three, because I think even the engine was somewhere else. So it was massive.
Yeah, I remember watching that, not at the track, but I remember watching it on TV, and it was pretty stunning to watch. It's pretty.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I went from like being 10 laps away of winning the 500 to the hospital.
Right. So, right.
And then 97. You came back, and I think that's important. I mean, a lot of people who have bad injuries like that, it's almost kind of like a redemption, right? To kind of come back and show yourself you can still do it. I mean, was that kind of the reason why you wanted to come back?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, you're a racer. You always wanted to come back, and so you can still do it again. I mean, the goal of going back to racing really helped me a lot during my recovery process, because it was long and painful. And if I walk the way I walk now, and live the life I do now, is because of that. I really worked very hard at the beginning, and probably harder than anyone, and so having that goal really helps you mentally to go through that. And because of that, I'm very thankful to Mike Lanigan and the whole Lanigan family, that they told me, Sandro, if you want to come back, we're behind you, and we're gonna be with you. So, and that's why with Andy Evans, we put together the effort for the first ever 1997 IRL season, right? And we did the Lara car and everything else. I mean, I had on the paper, it was a very good effort, except that, the events, with the engines and all the issues, that they were blowing up, and the season was, extremely, extremely complicated and difficult. But I ended up, qualifying again at the Indy 500, and that I will never forget, because I got bumped out with my first car, and then I had to qualify on bump day. And so I went out like at the very, very last minute before 6 o'clock. And I think it was like 5:35 something, where everyone wants to be out, because of the happy hour. And during my second lap, it started to rain. So raindrops in my helmet, right? So, and Indy, you don't know if like it's can rain in one corner and be dry in another. So it was just like I had for 2.5 laps, 3 laps, with drops in my helmets, not knowing if the truck was going to go yellow or not, like qualifying for the 500 after, you're back from an injury. I mean, the flood of emotions during that run I still remember like if it was yesterday. I mean, I really had to, hold it tight, keep your foot down and just go for it. It's because either, if I was going to hesitate just in one corner, I would have been out. Right. So
when you'd go out for a qualifying run, Indy, when did you have a certain routine? Did you start working to get into a mindset, or is it something that you just easily flow into?
No, I mean, like, when you're a race car driver and you have you're so used to it to sort of like getting yourself ready. It's either for a race or for a qualifying run, and qualifying in an ovals is different than do it on a straight circuits, and because everything has its own procedure. So but you're mentally prepared. You sort of isolate yourself from the whole world. You concentrate, you focus, you concentrate on your car. You have your last feeling and sensations of the car from the last time you drove it. But of course, when you go in, it's always unknown, because conditions have changed, the weather changed, temperature had changed. So that is like the biggest challenge when you qualify, like at Indy. You don't know exactly what you're going to find out there, and you only you can waive, of course, your attempt. At least I don't know if it's still the same nowadays, but back in the days you had like 3 attempts for each chassis, right? So and that's how you do it.
And then after, kind of wrap it up, I know you got to go here in a second, but kind of after Indy, you get into Porsche SuperCup. And I mean, you did Porsche SuperCup for
15 years.
15 years, yeah. So, it seemed like you kind of find your place in that, and you won a championship. What was that kind of like going from, IndyCar racing, which is obviously extremely competitive, to, Porsche SuperCup?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the smartest decision I ever took, because I mean, when you live in IndyCar, I realized that was the end of my career, right? So I just didn't want to be like chasing rides right and left, and like changing championship and just like being in them. So I said, I'm just gonna, focus on working, and get my second life as a businessman. I love business. I love real estate. And, back in the days, my family had a car dealership group, so I ran that. But I said, I have still so much passion. So what can I find, that's kind of like checks all the boxes, right? So, and when I look at the Super Cup, I said, it's Porsche. They're beautiful cars. They're not super fast and not like super dangerous, right? And you race with Formula One events, so beautiful racetracks with a lot of fans. I still got to, travel and see beautiful places. And I get to drive 45 minutes on Friday, 30 minutes qualifying on Saturday, and a 35 minutes race on Sunday. So physically, it's not really that demanding. And they're like some really good prize money, and sponsors are like love to be part of the SuperCup because you're with a Formula One event. So, you have teams that had great sponsors and everything. So I could really make some really, really good money doing it. So, and then there's like 10, 12 events in a year. So it was like the perfect combination. And I enjoyed it so much that I had great memories. I don't think any other drivers ever made the Super Cup for 15 years in a row. I think I did 158 races and being a champion. So it was quite I would say, a last stint of my career that I really, really enjoyed it because it was fantastic.
I think that's great, though. I mean, to go through the ups and downs, and then you find kind of, I wouldn't say your place, but you find a place that you really enjoy, and you get to do it the way you want to do it and have fun and be competitive. You can't ask for anything more, right? At the end of the day.
No, 100%, 100%. And, after I won the championship again, after my injuries and all my up and downs, and it was damn competitive. It's a one-make series, so it's not like there's a lot of things that you can invent. So, but it was, I had a lot of fun.
Sorry.
That's okay.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, Scott, you have anything else?
No, I'm so sorry about that. Go ahead and finish your thought on that. My apologies, Alessandro.
That's okay. It's okay. I like dogs.
No, go ahead and finish your thought though on the Porsche Super Cup, just the championship and running the end.
No, I've said, having won in 2005 as I won the Super Cup, it was sort of like a perfect. I don't say ending, but it's like, proving again that I could be, still very fast, being even like 35 or 34 that I was at the time. Doing it in Monza because I became champion in Monza
that's great
in Italy.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic. It was super, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then in the meantime, I started to build all my business career, which I love, which I'm still doing. And after all these years, for me, every day is like when I was racing. I go at the same speed with the same challenge. Real estate is pretty much the same as the same intensity as a race weekend. Yeah, except that you have that every day and not just on weekends. So, but I love it. I love design. I love what I do, and I've been pretty successful too. So I'm fantastic. I have still my beautiful wife with me. We have 2 children, 21 and 23.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so all good. One lives in LA, the other one lives in London for now.
So. Well, that's good. They're having a good life, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you one last question. I'm sorry, I know you got to go. Talent. Do you think how much of talent? How much of the skill sets do you think that is learned, and how much of it is you're just born with?
I think the speed inside you're born with is just like you can't really, and then if you have that, then you can learn all the techniques. You learn how to control your speed, and you learn how to maximize your speed skills and your ability to drive a race car. But I think the most how can I say skills you need to have is like really having the strength of never give up, right? Because motorsports is just like so hard on you that it's just like if you're if you don't have a hard heart and a lot of passions and a lot of motivations and you're not giving up, there's a lot of actually. Funny enough, my son just did a short documentary on Stefan Johansson. My son is studying film and television, so and I stayed friends with Stefan, so he did a little piece. And Stefan in his interview said something very, very interesting, that he said there was a lot of drivers, that I got while I was racing them. Maybe they were even better than me as drivers, but they end up giving up. They just didn't try hard enough. And that if you do that, that's it. But if you don't give up and always fight, and if you're good and you can get it, you're definitely going to go somewhere. Then it either means being an IndyCar champion or a Formula One world champion, or being, a very good driver and enjoy and have a career. That's a different story. That's it's another chapter. But that's my piece of advice that I can have to any kid that's racing out there. Don't give up.
I think that's awesome advice. That's for sure. On my side, I don't have any more questions. Aaron, you got anything?
I don't. Thank you so much, Alessandro, for your time. It's an honor, and yeah, I hope you have a good night. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you. I
hope
guys.
we get to speak again. you got an open invite anytime you want. So
thank you. I'm in New York, so if you guys ever come over, we'll have a drink.
If you ever come to Indy, we'll do the same.
Thank you so much.